Good afternoon, Darlington County School District, and welcome back to another In the Know, a time where we are able to give out information to our employees across the school district, update everybody about some of the new things that are going on, some of the new news and information that is out there about the school district, as well as an update from the most recent school board meeting. So it's great to see everybody. We are in the middle of March as we speak. And as I was looking at my calendar, it became very clear to me that we are quickly approaching the end of the school year. We are already 3/4 of the way through this school year, so it is going very quickly now. I'm sure you're feeling this as well in your buildings and in your departments and schools. But again, let me make sure to say thank you. Thank you for what you do. Thank you for everything you do to serve our students and to support our students. Again, these are very interesting times that we're in right now. It's great not to be talking about COVID as much as what we were talking about a month or so ago. But at the same time, that means that we're talking about other things and new challenges that you're facing in your classroom. And I think the reality is that what we're seeing, what I'm seeing, what you're seeing is that the pandemic is still affecting people emotionally, even though it may not be affecting them as much physically as it was. And so I just want to thank you for being able to deal with that and to deal with our students. I know there's behavior issues too that you've been dealing with, and we're trying to get those taken care of. So hang on and just know that you are doing the right thing for our children, and we support you in that. And I'm just very grateful and thankful that you are where you are, and specifically in the Darlington County School District. Okay, so recap of the board meeting. That's the first thing that I have on my list that I wanted to talk about. We did talk about several things. One of the things I wanted to go to first was the conversation about the new state funding formula that has been presented by legislators and the governor, and more specifically about teacher salary increases. So what I want to make sure that everybody understands about this new funding formula is there are two conversations that are going on right now, and they are being meshed together, which makes things very confusing as far as the details. So the two parts of the funding formula are: how much are we going to give school districts for funding the normal operations of the schools? And then the other part of the conversation is teacher raises. And so they are two different conversations, but unfortunately they've been kind of lumped together in a lot of conversations. So let's tackle the funding for operations. I am encouraged that we have a simple formula in comparison to all the other funding streams that we had to deal with in the past. The flexibility that this funding formula has for us to be able to spend money how we think is necessary and correct for our district, and not being tied down to the specifics of a certain fund or certain accounts that can only be spent certain ways. So I'm encouraged about the simplicity of the funding formula. It appears that Darlington County School District is receiving more money under the new formula versus the old way we were funded by the state. But I'm still trying to figure out exactly what that means for our district. It is so different in how this is put together. The premise is on student-teacher ratio. That they are the premise of all the funding is on student-teacher ratio, and the state has identified an 11.2 to 1 student ratio for, they say teachers, but it's more than just teachers. They also put media specialists, school counselors, speech therapists, nurses, psychologists. They put a lot of other folks in that mix when they talk about the optimum amount of teachers in a specific school. So again, 11.2 to 1, and so it's a pretty straightforward calculation. You take your student enrollment and divide it by 11.2, and that's how many teachers that the state is saying that they will fund, which includes nurses and the other positions that I was telling you about. So again, using that formula, it appears that we come out with more money. And again, if we do, I'm grateful for that. I'm thankful for that. But we still have to figure out other streams of money that they're saying are being rolled up. Ms. Renee Douglas, our CFO, is working on that as well. She's the expert on that, but we hope to have a very good handle on that within the next couple weeks as we talk about our budgets. All right. The next thing that we'll talk about with the school funding is the teacher raise portion. And I know many of you all have heard about this in the media. And what's touted to be a $4,000 raise for teachers. The actual details and truth is that they are not funding school districts to give teachers $4,000 raises. They are funding school districts that currently don't pay $40,000 a year for a starting teacher. They are making up the difference to get them to $40,000. So any school district that currently is not paying $40,000 a year for starting teachers, the state is giving them money. Well, how much money are they giving them? If a school district is paying the minimum, which is $36,000 this year, then the state is giving those districts up to $4,000 to potentially give to their teachers. And so that's where the $4,000 is coming in. They're raising the minimum state salary, starting salary for a first-year teacher from $36,000 to $40,000. And if you are paying less than $40,000, they are making up the difference. There are very few districts in our state that are paying $36,000 right now for starting teacher salary. But those that are, they're getting $4,000 per teacher. Darlington County, on the other hand, and many districts like ours, we're currently paying $40,000 a year. We are tops in the PD as far as teacher pay. Our board has been committed to that. I've been committed to that, and making sure that we have the highest teacher pay in the PD and really one of the highest in the state. The problem is that the state is giving us no money for raises for teachers because we're already at the $40,000. So while they talk about $4,000, they're not talking about for everybody. They're only talking about for those districts that only pay $36,000. Unfortunately, those facts and details were not explained very clearly when this first started, and superintendents like myself are left to explain it to everybody after the fact. And so I've had that conversation with our board. Now, what does that mean? I don't know. There's still a lot of time in this budget process, and so my hopes are that the legislators fix this. If you truly are saying that every teacher should get a $4,000 raise, then you need to give us the money. All school districts should receive the money to pay a $4,000 raise. And so therefore, we would not be penalized because we've been giving our teachers more than the minimum salary over the past few years. So that is my hope, and that's still possibility on the table. Okay, so what happens if the state doesn't give us any money? Well, that doesn't mean that our teachers won't receive a raise. How much of a raise? I don't know at this point in time. The board will have to take that up and decide. And also realize that we have been very committed. When we give teachers raises, we give all of our employee raises. So now we have to talk about the money for teacher raises and everybody else as well. I have been committed over the past 4 years to put Darlington County in the front of the PD with pay. I'm still committed to that, and we will work to make sure that we do everything we can. I just don't have that answer, but I wanted you to have the information about the teacher salary information and what the facts are versus what the message has been. So stay tuned. And we will keep you updated as we get more information as well, and certainly as we go through the budget process. The other big items that we talked about at the board meeting were, of course, our facilities and building program recommendations that we're in the midst of. And so there was a long discussion about St. John's and Rosenwald and a potential to merge those two schools. And the majority of that conversation was focused on the financials, the financial information as far as what it would take to renovate the current St. John campus, all the buildings on that campus, and how much that would cost, and of course, how much does that compare to building a new school? And then, of course, also with Rosenwald, similar situation with the building, not as bad not as bad a shape as St. John's is, but certainly they have some buildings that were from the 1950s, built in the 1950s, that need work as well. And so we talked a little bit about Rosenwald, but the key was St. John's because that's the one that is the big price tag for renovating, and wanted to be able to show what was going on with that. Now, let me say, our folks at St. John's and Rosenwald do an awesome job. They do everything possible to help their students be successful. This has absolutely nothing to do with our teachers and employees and support personnel and administration and our students in those buildings. They do a great job of keeping and maintaining those facilities. So it absolutely has nothing to do with that. It has nothing to do with the job they do educating our students in those buildings. This strictly boils down to what is the best environment that we can put our students in, and we have to stay focused on that. And we know we've got 3 brand new schools that just opened in 2020, what that environment looks like for kids versus the environment in many of our older buildings. So that was the bulk of the conversation. Also from that board meeting, I announced community meetings for folks from the St. John's and Rosenwald areas to give us input. The St. John's meeting is Tuesday, March 22nd from 6 to 7:30 p.m. at the St. John's Auditorium. And then Rosenwald's community input will be on Thursday, March 24th from 6 to 7:30 p.m. at Rosenwald Elementary Middle School. Again, it's a chance for me and the board just to receive feedback. Our focus is on creating the right spaces for our students, and potentially, if we did not have students in those buildings, what might be a great positive way that those buildings could be used for our communities, and how they can give back to the communities as well. The next thing I'd like to mention is that we do have actually open houses for 2 of our new schools that were finished in 2020. We've been waiting 2 years to have open houses and allow people to come through our buildings and get a chance to see all these bright new spaces that kids can walk in the door and just feel so cared about and so valued in these buildings. And again, we're excited to show the public what these buildings look like. So Sunday, this coming Sunday, March the 20th, from 2 o'clock to 4 o'clock in the afternoon, Bay Road and J.L. Kane Elementary will be open for the public to come through and walk through and see these new buildings. And so I encourage you to take advantage of getting a chance to look at those buildings and get a chance to see the spaces that we're talking about for putting all of our students in. And on that note, our facilities program and building program that we're working on, it's not just St. John's and Rosenwald. It's every building has been assessed. And at some point in time, every building will need to be addressed. And so this is a way to see how we've addressed the most recent ones and what that looks like, and hopefully get an idea of what the future may hold for the rest of our buildings in the school district. So that's everything I have for today for In the Know. As I always say, please hug on those around you. Tell them how much you care about them and love them. Thank them for us, for allowing them to share you with us and to be part of the Darlington County School District family. Again, there's a very unique energy in the Darlington County School District, and it has to do with being focused in a way that we are consistent, that we do everything we can to take care of each other as a family, and that we show our communities how much we value and care for our students and their children, but also how much we value our communities as well. So it's good to feel that energy even more in the springtime as we open back up and we have more of our events that happen during the springtime where people can attend them. Again, thank you for everything you do for our children. I cannot say that enough. It is so appreciated. And I'm just proud to be part of the Darlington County School District and proud to tell everybody else about how wonderful we are. So I hope you have a great rest of the week, and I will look forward to seeing you next month for another In the Know.